Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Sunday classes. Every Sunday, typically at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we have classes on various aspects of yoga. As you know, yoga is not just asana, it's not just postures, people in very tight costumes stretching. It's everything from correct living to self-realization. And one of the things that hangs all of that together is Sanskrit. And over many of the past few years at the festival, Lucy has very kindly come along and given us classes on Sanskrit. And it's very unusual for what looks like a Western person like this to come along and have this deep love of the Sanskrit language. And she studied it for many, many years, studied it from very good scholars. And she has an understanding of it and how it relates to yoga and why it should be important for us. And she's very practical about all of these things. We're very fortunate to have her in the community, and she's very kindly offered to give this free Sunday course. As you know, these Sunday classes are designed to try and raise a little bit of charitable donations for the festival, because this year we're having to run our entire operations without anything to do with the festival. And these classes are just terrific at keeping us well connected. So if you can help, then all donations will be welcome. So Lucy, tremendous supporter of our festival, as I said, great scholar of the language, far more than anybody else gathered here, I'm sure, certainly far more than myself. And so I will then pass the baton to her and ask her to lead this class, tell us what she's going to be talking about and how she wants to organize this class. So welcome, Lucy. Thank you very much indeed for agreeing to do this class and helping us in this way. Over to you.
Thank you, Ram. Thank you for such a generous and kind introduction. It's lovely. Yeah, I've loved teaching at this festival the last 2 live years. What an amazing energy you've managed to create and collate and bring together. It's quite a unique thing. So I'm very happy to be part of it. So it's nice to see you all here. So what I teach often very much depends on who's here and what's happening and the energy of the group, which usually you can feel into both live and even on Zoom. I've discovered clearly most people here will have come through a yoga interest, I'm imagining. Sometimes people can come to Sanskrit through a sound healing interest, or through other ways, but I'm imagining that most people here have come through initially through yoga and then an interest in this language. So I call it the language of yoga. So I run a course, it's called, and I'm writing a book, The Sounds of Sanskrit, the Language of Yoga. Because the sounds of Sanskrit are the language of yoga. They're the direct expression, they're the communication, they are I'm going to repeat the word expression, the expression of yoga in a direct and very visceral way. So on a kind of very practical, kind of academic level, all of the famous yoga texts, the Yoga Sutras, not the Upanishads yoga, but the Upanishads, the Veda, Ramayana, the Bhagavad Gita, all of these texts were all written in Sanskrit. So every non-modern text that is telling us something about yoga is written in the Sanskrit language. And I'm going to correct my use of the word written, because they weren't written, they were received and expressed forth. So it's an oral tradition. And only later they became written down in books that we can look at. So this really connects us back to the sound aspect of it. So every language has its own sound. English has its own music, sound or music, we can use either word. Italian, French, German, they all have their own music, their own sound. So even if we don't speak one of these languages, we can recognize the music of Italian, we can put on the accent of Italiano, we can imbibe the quality, and even when we do the accent of a different language, we kind of change something in us, we can become something different. And anyone who is fluent in another language knows that when they speak that other language, they kind of literally almost turn into a different person. Like the way that they express themselves, the way they feel, as this resonance is vibrating in their body, is completely different. So each language, if we can think of it, these words, language and music, frequency, energetic signature, resonance, these are all words to try and give this feeling. Each one has its own unique energetic resonance, its own energetic signature. So what is the energetic signature of Sanskrit? Because perhaps held within that energetic signature is a direct experience of yoga itself. And in order to feel into this energetic signature, we obviously have to make the sounds, we have to hear it, we have to get used to the sounds. And the wonderful thing about the Sanskrit language is one of the easiest languages to learn because it is phonetic. And once you've learnt the letters, and once you've learnt how to read and write the letters, and you know how to sound the letters that are written, it never changes. You can then pronounce, you may not understand, but you can pronounce any word in the whole entire Sanskrit tradition once you just learn those letters, which obviously isn't the case for English, because once you learn the alphabet, it doesn't mean to say that you can pronounce any words, because each word has its own unique, oh, well, in this instance, an A is pronounced like this, and in this instance, a P is actually a F. So, you know, so many intricacies that we need to learn when we're just learning to pronounce the English language. And Sanskrit is fixed. There's no debate. This is how you pronounce it. And you learn a letter, that's it, forever. Every single A in the Sanskrit language, ah. There's no ah. There's no ah. So that's wonderful. You know, it gives this amazing clarity to this language and incredibly accessible, in fact. Of course, many people think, oh my goodness, you know, Sanskrit scholar, and it feels very overwhelming. But that's maybe just because we haven't had any interaction with it, so we just assume that it's overwhelming. But actually, once we just make that first step into it, we realize, my goodness, this is kind of the opposite of overwhelming. And in fact, my experience of it is that it's the force and energetic resonance of it is so strong that you kind of have no choice. We will all have had that experience. We would have all have walked into a yoga class probably by accident. Probably, oh, I'll just try it out then. And then something happened. That's certainly what happened for me. In that moment of that first yoga class, my entire being reorientated around something that I didn't understand. And from that moment, my life was no longer my own. At different levels of consciousness was I able to see this, but from that moment, nothing was more important than going to that yoga class. And I'm sure none of you would be giving up your beautiful sunny Sunday afternoon to sit inside listening to a Sanskrit lecture if you also hadn't had some pivotal moment in your life where some unknown reservoir of energy was now more powerful than perhaps what our mind is telling us that we want to do. You know, I'd actually rather watch a film this afternoon. No, actually something deeper than me is saying that actually I want to listen to a Sanskrit lecture. And it won't be a lecture, by the way. It's going to be a talk. We're going to do call and response stuff, but I'll just start with a bit of talking just to give you a feel for what we're going to be doing. And so what was I saying? Accessible. Sanskrit language has got this accessibility. Oh yeah, we reorientate around. So my experience of the Sanskrit language, same. Reorientate around yoga. Before I know it, I'm quitting my job and going to India on a one-way ticket via Jordan. No idea when I was going to come back, but I was ready for it to be never. And 2 years it took to come home. And then one thing led to another. And then in fact, when I was in India, wasn't ready for Sanskrit. I was too busy having a breakdown, actually, just to deal with past issues. And then when I came back, I walked into a Jiva Mukti class one day and heard someone singing kirtan, and you know, the more melodious Sanskrit expression. And I just, in the office the next day, well, where did this come from? What is the root of this? And this word Veda came up, and this word Vedic chant teacher training in Austria with the Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandarin. So officially the Veda, which is what we will chant a bit together, was not taught to women, and probably not to Westerners traditionally either. And Krishnamacharya, who taught Patabi Joyce and Iyengar, so kind of one of the grandfathers of yoga, used his knowledge as a Chaturvedi, someone who was versed in all 4 Veda and all 6 darshana, and had several degrees and had walked to Tibet and done intense sadhana with his master for many, many years, used his knowledge and his kind of standing and reputation to prove that women should be taught Vedic chanting. So he took on his first student around in the 1980s, I think, early 80s, who was his daughter-in-law, Menaka Deskachar. And I found myself at the first ever teacher training that Menaka Deskachar ran, with people who'd been waiting for this training for 20 years. They were all senior teachers in the Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandarin, and I kind of didn't really know who Krishnamacharya was when I turned up. But I just had this, it was called, something was calling, there's something here, and I found myself, and in my head it was 4 2-week modules, and I thought, well, you know, if the first module I don't like, I'll just won't go back, you know. But from the first second Menaka started chanting, I was again my whole being reorientated even more deeply around a force that I could not understand. And during that process, we learned to read and write Sanskrit, because well, I just talked about this in a recent video, which people can watch if they want more detail on this. It's about the Ashtanga process. So the Ashtanga, which you've probably heard of, is not a path. It's Ashtanga, 8 limbs. So limbs do not grow one limb at a time. They grow organically as one whole. So the first word of the Yoga Sutras, can anyone tell me what the first word of the Yoga Sutras is? This is the well, it was oral. This is the
Atta.
No, it's a trick question.
Ah.
It's
what, sorry?
It's not, is all I've said. I haven't told you what it is. I've just said it's not. Atta.
Okay.
That's what people say. The first word of the Yoga Sutras is Samadhi Padaha. Then Atta Yoga Anushasanam. Samadhi Padaha. The first word is Samadhi. Why is the first word of the Yoga Sutras Samadhi? Everyone thinks this is the goal. So the goal is not Samadhi. The goal is Kaivalyam, which is the 4th chapter. And chapter isn't the right word, but we'll come to that. Samadhi, a deep sum together in fully, the energetic movement of that which sustains and nourishes you, from the root dha. So Samadhi, fully connected with something which deeply sustains and nourishes your being. Hello. Good, hello. We have to have had an experience of that before we're willing to have a conversation with someone about yoga. We're closed to yoga. We don't understand it. We don't understand something until we've experienced it. And then once we've experienced it, Samadhi Padaha is the English word pedestrian and pedal come from the word Padaha. So English, the mother is Latin. Mother of Latin is ancient Greek. Mother of ancient Greek is Sanskrit. So believe it or not, English is an Indo-European language coming from Sanskrit. So many of our words we can link back to the Sanskrit. So pedal and pedestrian come from pada. Samadhi Padaha, usually translated to mean chapter, which really does not encompass what this means. A pada. As you take a step, as you pedal, what happens? If I take a step from one side of the room to the other, what changes? Question for you.
You go forwards into another place. You've changed your position.
You change your position, and as you change your position, what changes?
Your perception of what's around you.
Exactly, your perception and your vision.
Your vision, yes, of what
Yeah.
you can see.
Therefore, perception, your vision. You literally, physically, if I move from here to here, I literally will see something different that wasn't in my view at this point. So the four chapters of the Yoga Sutras are called padas. And we say chapter because we don't really have a word for pada, so we just kind of use the word chapter, but it's really step, vision. From 4 different perspectives, we get the whole elephant. So, but we have to understand the 4 different perspectives to get the whole. So the first view, the first pada is the Samadhi pada. So we have a deep and visceral experience of something. And then what? Atha. Now, we are ready, yoga anushasanam. Anushasanam, we are ready to listen to that which we have been ignoring for so long. It's there already. We are just ready now to turn our ears towards it. So I'm doing a long round the point, getting back to a point here. So Samadhi, the Ashtanga system, is presented in the 2nd chapter of the Yoga Sutras. And of course, when we talk and when we write, we can only talk linearly. I can only say one word after another. I can't talk vertically. It's kind of not possible. So I am restricted by the apparatus and the capacity of this instrument, which is to talk vertically. So therefore, if I'm talking about something, I'm going to say one thing after another. But nowhere in the Yoga Sutras does it say these Ashtanga, these must be done one after the other. And in fact, the fact that they're called Ashtanga, 8 limbs, very much suggests that this is an organic growing. So if we imagine that the first is Samadhi, an experience, and then we look at Yama and Niyama, hopefully most people have had some interaction with the Ashtanga system. If you haven't, then afterwards you can look at Yoga Sutra 229, and that's where this is presented, often called the 8 limbs, but they're the 8 limbs or the eightfold path. So the Yama comes from the root yam, which means in measurement. Simultaneously, at the same time that we have this experience, so arises within us a question: what was the measurement of this? What's the structure? How did this come about? What are the measurements of this particular energetic signature that has just affected me so profoundly? And we start looking into the structure and the measurements of this energy. And as we look into the measurement and the structure of this energy, so our niyama, ni, inward, yama, our inward measurements start changing. So as we have deepened in our yoga practice, I'm sure we've had experiences of moments where perhaps we may have just easily told a little not truth, and maybe it's coming out, and some part of us is, oh wow, that feels like that feels wrong now in a way that maybe it didn't before, because we weren't so connected to our body and aware of sensations. But as we have become aware and deepened in that which sustains and nourishes, so our measurements start changing. And so asana, the root is as, which means in being. In what is our seat of being? So the physical asana bring about different seats of being. Wow, when I'm in this asana, I feel my consciousness is seated in a different seat to that which I'm used to. And so we get to explore different seats of consciousness. And in the Sanskrit language, so the reason I'm bringing the Ashtanga system up is because I'm giving you a feel for how to enter the Sanskrit language. So you have this, I had this Samadhi experience when I was at the Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandarin, and all of you, I don't think of Samadhi as something unattainable. Every single one of you on this call will have had a Samadhi experience, otherwise you wouldn't be here. Simultaneously, the Yama came up. Okay, now I need to learn how to read and write this language, because I can't, in order to go further in this embodiment of this and this relationship with this energy, I need to be able to access the structure, understand the structure in some way. So I learned to read and write. It was part of this course to learn to read and write it, because as you learn to read the Devanagari, so I'll just write that word on the board. So the script of Sanskrit is called Devanagari, and it's got the kind of line like this. Deva, light, Nagari, city, place, the place of light, the place of light. And once we can read this, it changes our understanding of the language somehow. It changes our whole Ashtanga experience. The whole experience deepens because we understand the measurements in a different way. So, for example, if you took a clock or a car or a building, and say you understood the foundation, say you'd built the foundations of a building and you knew exactly what had gone into those foundations, your vision of that building would be different to someone who hadn't been involved with the building of that building at all, because they have taken it apart and they've seen the structure of it. Or someone who takes apart cars their experience of a car will be different to those who know nothing about them. Or art or music, someone who has studied music theory or chord progressions, their experience of a Wagner opera will be very different to someone who has had no training in that area. Same with appreciation of art. So the structure goes with the samadhi within the expression that everything is fully available to us in any moment. So we could at any moment just totally let go and the whole seeking stops. And this is fully available to us in every moment. And there is paradoxically at the same time a process of fully embodying and allowing that knowing of who we really are expressing freely through our human form. So this kind of process part of the equation, which is just part of it, is expressed through this Ashtanga system, and is very much talking to each other between this structure understanding and the deeper meditative experiences. So asana is the physical experience, and then in the Sanskrit you have the word asya, and asya means the points of articulation. So there are 5 main points of articulation in the Sanskrit language. So I'll write that word down for you, and each one embodies a different seat of being. Asya. There are 5 main asya, which are obviously very connected to this word asana because it has the same root. So as we embody these sounds and we start to really feel these 5, I call them the light rays of the Sanskrit language, so our pranayama, from the root where we get the English word animate from. So our animation is affected. So our energy and our spirit and our expression is affected according to what seat of being we're inhabiting. Where within our system are we seated as we express our pranayama? And then spontaneously may occur pratyahara. Hr comes from the root hr, which means in drawing or pulling. We may be drawn or pulled into one point, into an experience or knowing of the one energy from which these diverse expressions come forth. And then we have dharana and dhyana, both from the root dha, in that which sustains and nourishes, and so spontaneously meditation may arise. And so a meditation. And then we go back, and then we go further in the structure. Okay, so now I've learned to read and write this language. I wonder what else it has to offer. How do the words come together? So the Sanskrit language, another reason why it's such an accessible and easy language to learn, is that it operates on the system called a root system, which we don't have in English, which means that there are 900 active roots in the language, and they're called roots, but really they should be called seeds, because their function is more like a seed. So if you imagine a field with 900 seeds planted in it, and out of each seed grows a tree, and on each tree is a different fruit and a different number of fruits on each tree. So these fruit are the Sanskrit words. But each word, in order to really gauge its essence, we go right back down to its seed. And the Sanskrit language has this capacity within it to take every single word from the physical to the subtle to the causal to beyond. So the physical is the actual word. So for example, if we were to take the word karma, comes from the root, so the word is karma. So what does karma mean? What is the energy of karma? And then we go down the tree to its seed, and we find that its seed is this seed or root called kr. So that's the subtle element of this word is this seed, kr. And then the Sanskrit language has the capacity to take it even further, has the capacity to take it into the causal realm. So the causal realm is found in the chakra system, and each of the chakras has a letter in the middle, and they also have petals around the edge, and they have a Sanskrit letter in each of the petals. So for example, in the Vishuddha chakra here, we have hung in the middle, and then we have the 16, what's called matrika, the 16 vowels or divine mothers around the edge. So we have a, I, u, a, I, o, ow, ah, which we'll chant in a bit. So we have the 16 vowels around here, and then the consonants around the other chakras. So these letters are sitting in the chakras, and if we take kr down further, we find the individual letters, each one sitting on a different chakra. And then if we want to go even further, we go to what's called in Sanskrit para. So para is where we get the English word paranormal from, beyond normal, para, beyond. So from beyond, we get what's called a spota. It's kind of like a spark. So that impulse to talk. Why do we say anything? We've all felt that. You know, you've got to say something. It can feel, sometimes it's so urgent, it's just, I've just got to say that. And sometimes it's more subtle, and sometimes we can just hear it and not say anything. But whatever happens, there's a spota, a spark from beyond, from para. So para is something beyond what we are able to normally perceive through our senses. And this spota, this spark, comes forth from that realm into the chakra system, moves the chakras, the letters which are sitting there, to create a seed or a root, and then from that seed comes forth a word. So every word we can take back down into para by following its root, going to its seed, and then going to the individual letters. So this is where RCM, knowing where the letters are pronounced, is really key, because each letter has its own resonance and frequency, so we'll have a look at that in a minute. And then if we meditate with that, eventually we can pop through into that which is beyond. So, it's Caroline. I thought I recognised your voice. Nice to see you. Yeah, so this is the amazing way that every word comes forth in the Sanskrit language. And also what it means is, as we're going to say, once you've learnt one root, for example, dha, then you know that anything along that dharma, dharana, dhyana, they're all going to have something to do with sustaining and nourishing. And then once you've learnt kr, then you know that anything, pretty much with a kr or a kara, sometimes kr turns into a kara, has something to do with action. So once you've learnt one word, you've often learnt 50, because they come in families, fruit families, all connected to the same seed. This is another reason why the Sanskrit language is so accessible. Once you start, it becomes very easily available to us. So that's just a little preamble. Any questions or thoughts or anything at this stage before we do a little bit of sounding or something? All good, all done. Okay, so we're going to sound the 16 Matrika, which are the 16 divine mothers of the Sanskrit language. So the English word mother comes from the Latin matra. I don't know how the Latin is pronounced, but anyway, it comes from the Sanskrit root ma, in measuring out. The one ka, agency, the ones who measure out the consciousness. So the feminine energy has the capacity to measure out consciousness. So these vowels, each one measures out a different realm of consciousness. They each have their own energetic feeling around them, which creates a different frequency. So we're going to chant them. First of all, we'll just do kind of call and response. So I won't be explaining exactly how to pronounce them, because we're just going to have an experience with them first of all, and then I'll explain, if we have time later, go a little bit more into the detail of the pronunciation. And then we're going to sound, I think we're going to sound a mantra from the Veda, and we're probably going to do the most famous one, which can be good and bad. We're going to do the Gayatri Mantra. So who here doesn't know the Gayatri Mantra? One, yeah, not many. So this can be good and bad, because often people may have learnt it with a melody, for example, say, or perhaps not in the original Vedic way. So, you know, David Prema Mittal, whatever, David Mittal has, you know, done a great thing by making this mantra very famous, and such is the resonance of this mantra that even when it's taken and added to a melody and added instruments, it still has power. But what we're going to do is, if you imagine that this is kind of like a raw diamond that hasn't been polished yet, and you know, that's kind of maybe the experience. And what we're going to do is we're going to get closer, and we're going to look at the Vedic way, and then what we find is that as you get clearer and clearer in the yama and niyama of the language, as you really start to embody the asya, the 5 places of articulation, and to embody the structure of the language, the diamond starts polishing more and more and becoming brighter and brighter. So usually what I do when I first introduce this is I do it, there are kind of 2 main ways that are Vedic ways of chanting. And one of them is with 3 tones, and one of them is with 1 tone, Acre Shruti. So in a longer workshop, usually my workshops are kind of a minimum of 4 hours, so you know, it's very hard for me to do an hour and a half, because this is just such a vast subject that the kind of basic seems to be a 4 or 5 hour workshop. But because we've got a short workshop, I'm not going to do what I normally do, which is do the 3-1 and then the 1-1, the 1 tone one, because we don't have time, and we're just going to go straight to the 1 tone, because I think this is less frequently done, and this is what my own personal practice is now. So I originally studied with the Christian Yoga Mandarin, as I said at the beginning, who teach, for people who don't know, there are what are known as 4 Veda, and they teach through one of those streams, the Yajur Veda. And post that, I found who actually recently died in May. So I studied with him for 5 years, a real absolute master of sound, who knew the Bible, Socrates, Plato, Vedic mathematics, Sanskrit, uses Vedic mathematics to understand economics, taught boys who had been kicked out of every school in London, kind of last drop boys, and kind of used spiritual practices in disguise to transform their lives. And he showed me that even within the Veda, there are what are known as kind of four Veda now. Rig, you probably heard, Yajur, Sama, Atharva. Each one has a kind of slightly different way of doing things, slightly different way. But one way of cutting through that is to do what's called Acre Shruti, which is one tone. And my experience, having chanted with the three tones for, quite a long, like, I don't know, 8 or 9 years or something, and taught it. When I moved to the Acre Shruti Acre Shruti sound, it polished that diamond another 40%, another huge chunk of polishing occurred, because the more that got removed and the more stiller I could get with the sound, the more precise and clear I could feel with the articulation. What started happening is that the mantra became liquid gold in my mouth, vibrating and singing in my mouth. And I did not need to sing or change the tone, because the gold was there all along. And that was all, that energy and the purity of that gold so far outshone anything else that I had attempted before. And that's what I found with my experience of the Bhagavad Gita. So it's Gita song, Bhagavad, of the Lord, the song of the Lord. So the song of the Lord is not our own beautiful song put on top of it. So my teacher, if anyone wants to look him up afterwards, he's if anyone was interested, people sometimes ask, we would call him Peter G. Harrison, but his name was Peter Harrison, and he ran Watkins Bookshop for about 20 years as well. And he's written a book. He wrote a book called The Sounds of Shiva, which was his incredible understanding, his very tantric understanding. I'll write it here. Sounds of Shiva, understanding of the Peter Harrison, of the Maheshwara Sutras. So if I have time, I'll come to those. These are the sounds which are the origins of the Sanskrit language. I'll just chant it for you once, so you've heard it. Yeah, I'll do that as I've started. So you see, I'll get my statue here. So this statue, so you've probably all seen that before. So this is the story of the origin of the Sanskrit language, how the Sanskrit language came into being. So the world was in misery. They felt like they'd really reached a crunch point. They didn't know how to progress. And so 4 sages on behalf of mankind went to Lord Shiva and said, Lord Shiva, please help us. We don't know how to move forward. And Lord Shiva said, I know why you are in a state of misery. It is because of the demon called Apasmara, who is the demon of forgetting. So the demon of forgetting has descended upon mankind, and all that needs to happen is to destroy this demon so that an awakening or knowing of ourselves can arise. So Lord Shiva assumed the form of Nataraja, the Lord of the Dance, and he danced the cosmic dance of creation on the demon Apasmara, who's under his feet, simultaneously destroying the demon of Apasmara. And as he danced the cosmic dance of creation, the bright illuminative light shone forth around him. And after he finished this dance, there was a moment's silence. And then in that silence, he banged his damaru drum, which is a drum shaped like a egg timer. And he banged it 14 times. And each time he banged it, out came a string of sounds. And these 14 lines are what are known as the Maheshwara Sutras. So Shiva has 3 names in this story. He's called Shiva, he's called Nataraja, and then at the end he's called Maheshwara. Maha Ishvara, so the great sublime essence that holds everything, the Maheshwara Sutras. And these are the Sanskrit alphabet. And I'll chant it for you so you can hear it. And this is what Peter wrote a book on, is the meaning of these sounds. So I'll just chant it for you, and then we'll move on to our call and response chanting together. I'll explain what we're doing in between. So I'm just going to chant 14 lines, just so you've heard it, so you can get a feel for what this language is about. Lanna Nyamangananam Jabhainya Gadhadash Jabakadatash Kapachatata Chatata Kapai Shashasar Ho. I'll do it once a little faster. Ayun Rorik Ayam Ayat Hayavarat Lan Nyamangananam Jabhaim Gadadash Jabagadadash Kapachatata Chatata Kapai Shashasar Ho. And of course, those sounds are the cosmic dance of creation reenacted within your own mouth. So those sounds have the capacity to destroy the demon of apasmara and awaken a knowing of who we are. That is what the Sanskrit sounds are given to us for. And of course, this isn't a story written many years ago about a time in a distant past. It's about right now. We all recognize that we are in a state of despair in one way or other about the state of the world. And we all recognize some wise part in ourselves goes to something deep within ourselves, Shiva, from the root Shi, that in which all things lie. So we go into that part of ourselves in which all things lie, and we say, what's happening? And some part of us knows we've forgotten who we really are. And so we sound these sounds and we reenact this whole scene in our mouth. This is the experience in the mouth once we have really versed ourselves in the yama, niyama, asana aspects of the language, and we've managed to really embody the structure. And then so can come forth a destruction of that which is forgotten, an awakening of that which is to know. And this was a kind of roundabout story. I was coming back to the Bhagavad Gita, and my teacher Peter, that's why I needed to introduce you, tell you something about him, was teaching. He used to teach also at the SES, School of Economic Sciences, in the 60s and 70s. And he was trying to illustrate the point that the song of the Lord is found in the monotone. And he had an Indian teacher with him who was of the same understanding as Peter, but had also studied the Bhagavad Gita in Pune in a very elaborate, ornate way. And to get this teaching across to the students, they brought him in and he chanted the Bhagavad Gita for them in this incredibly ornate, beautiful way. And they said, and afterwards, they were, wow, that was beautiful. Thank you so much. That was incredible. And then he said, now, can anyone in this room tell me one word that they heard? And there was silence, because they'd been listening to the beautiful man-made melody, and man can make beautiful melody. but they hadn't heard any of the words, they hadn't heard any of the gold or the true resonance. And then when they just brought it back and did the monotone with the awareness of the asana, something completely different arose. And that is where the Song of the Lord is found, because it truly is the Song of the Lord. So we're going to have just a little experience of that. Of course, we haven't got time to really get really clear about all the structure elements of the language in this session. I'm just giving you a feeling for how to access this language, should you want to in the future, how it kind of works, how these 8 parts will work together, and how to deepen in your experience of it. And so we're going to do the Gayatri Mantra, which many of you will have probably heard already, but we're going to do it in this Acre Shruti, so you get an experience of it for yourself. And I might give a few directions about tongue position and stuff as we go. And we'll do the Matrika. I can write that down for you if you want. These 16 Divine Mothers are the vowels, first of all, which are these sounds which are found around the Vishwamitra chakra. I already wrote that word, sorry. I already wrote that word, the Matrika. So the measure is out of consciousness. So we'll do that, and then we'll do the Gayatri. And then we'll be silent for a little moment, and then we'll come back. So I realised I forgot to do the opening prayer. Just went straight into it. Oh well, this can be the opening prayer. Here we go. Near the end, we'll do our opening prayer, and then we'll do a closing prayer as well. Any questions on anything we've done thus far? The other, yes, Caroline? No? You're just moving your thing here. No. The other thing that is wonderful about this Acre Shruti is that, can anyone tell me, and Caroline should know the answer to this, why the Gayatri Mantra is called the Gayatri when the word Gayatri doesn't appear once in the chant? What's Gayatri?
It's the rhythm of the 8 syllables, I think, for each line. It's the pace. It's the meter.
The meter. Perfect.
Yeah.
It's the meter. It's where the chandas, it's called, and it's where we get the English word chant from. Chandas, the meter. So there are, I haven't got my book here. There are over 100. There's hundreds of Gayatri mantras, all to different aspects of light. Hundreds of them. But this one, which we're going to know, is known officially as the Maha Gayatri. So it's the great one, it's the famous, the most famous one. But there are actually hundreds. All with this rhythm of 8-8-8. That's what Gayatri means. 3 lines of 8. But this, the most famous of all the Gayatri mantras, Tat Savitur Varenyam. 7. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. 8. Dhiyo yo nah prachodayat. 8. This one is 7-8-8. Now there is no mistake here. It's like the great Beethoven sonatas. They're great because he just slightly doesn't follow sonata form. He does something different with the sonata form. So the greatest of the Gayatri mantras does not follow the Gayatri mantra. It has this silent beat, 7-8-8. Now if you do something like Varenyam tatsavitur Varenyam, you add another beat to it, which is not there in the text. This is the other amazing thing about Sanskrit, is you can never get the rhythm wrong, because every letter has its own count. So some vowels have 1 count, some vowels have 2, and every consonants are half a count, and every letter is pronounced. So if you have 2 consonants next to each other, you have to give half a count to each one. So the rhythm is literally written into every word. Some vowels are, if you know music, minims, some are crotchets, and the consonants are quavers. So it is literally a musical score in front of you, and it never changes. So for example, the E, which is pronounced A in Sanskrit, so this letter, is always 2 counts, always. And then you can have an R can either be a 1 or a 2 count. An E can be a 1 or a 2 count. So the rhythm's written into it, Varenyam. It's not Varenyam. It's not a 3 count, it's a 2 count. So when we add a melody to something, If we Tatsavitur, it's lovely, it's beautiful, but it's not a mantra. Mantra, I mean, it is on some form of mantra, and it's beautiful and it's lovely, and I love listening to beautiful singing. I'm not saying this is not a good thing to do. I'm just saying that if we want to crack a pane of a glass, we have to hit the right note. You have to be precise. So it depends what we're wanting. Are we wanting a beautiful, heartwarming experience, or are we wanting to crack the illusion of who we are? What is our desire? Because mantra has the capacity to crack the illusion, but it only has that capacity if we pronounce it absolutely correctly and we observe totally the rhythm that is written into it. And then thirdly, there's another element called the svara, the celestial spirit of the Veda, which is where our attention is placed, but that's probably for another session. But at least get the pronunciation in the rhythm. Then it becomes an arrow, a laser beam of light with the capacity to really change things. So that's what I'm endeavouring to give you a feeling for when we do it in this Acre Shruti way, observing absolutely the beat written into it, because the Gayatri, the beat, is what brings it into you. There's three main things that we must consider for every Vedic chant that we look at. We must look at the Rushi,
Hello.
the Chandas, and the Devata. So let's start with the Chanda. The Chandas is the beat. So as we know, any song, it's the beat that gets us up and dancing. If there's a really great beat, we can't help it. The beat lifts us up and gets us dancing. So the beat of the mantra takes it into us. The beat is the thing that carries it. So we have to observe that beat. And that's what we're going to do now when we observe 788 rather than 888. We have to acknowledge the Rishi, which is often said as to be the actual physical person who received this chant initially. But actually it's that capacity within ourselves to connect with this mantra. So before we chant the Gayatri, we're going to acknowledge the Rishi, who's called Vishwamitra, friend of all, which is the capacity we have within us to connect with the Devata of this chant. And the Devata is the light, the thing that we're trying to connect with, which is Savitra, which turns into Savitur, Tat Savitur, because it's in genitive case. So we're wanting to connect with Savita, which is a sun god, male sun god. We want to connect with this energy of the sun, and we're connecting to it through Gayatri, which is feminine, through the beat of the Gayatri. And in order to do this, we need to acknowledge that capacity we have within us to do that. There is some part within us which maybe we're not awakened to, which we're not connected to, which has a capacity to awaken, which has a capacity to connect to the sun. So we just need to give some acknowledgement to that, which is why we chant the name before we chant the chant. Just to really set the intention of our reason for engaging with this mantra. What is our intention? Our intention is to fulfill the capacity which lies within this mantra, the potential that lies within this mantra, which is to connect with light itself, to actually have a visceral experience of light itself. When my teacher had an experience, direct experience of this, it was actually with his teacher told him if he wanted to learn Sanskrit to throw away all his any textbook on it, buy the Rigveda in Sanskrit and start chanting it. At this point, he didn't know any Sanskrit, so he did, and this was in the early 60s, I think, and he brought the entire Rigveda in Sanskrit, which was over £100 at that time, was very expensive, lugged it home, and he was very good at doing exactly what his teacher told him to do. So he was this was the Shankaracharya of the North was his teacher at that point, and then later once he had awoken, he had an experience with Swami Rama, who gave him authority to initiate others into the Vedanta tradition. So he took the first shloka, what are they called? The first mantra of the second Mandala, the Rigveda. And the translation is the wife of the priest leads the sacrificer down the altar. The wife of the priest leads the sacrificer down the path to the altar. What does that mean? What could that possibly mean? And being Peter, he's like, I'm going to just find out what that means. So I'm going to sound this 4 lines, Acre Shruti, quietly, stillly, every day until I know what that means. So it took him about 3 months, and he sounded it with the correct asya and articulation, and meditated every day for 3 months. And then suddenly, the force of Shakti itself, or herself, hit him with such force that he said he literally had to run upstairs and hide under the bedclothes. He was amazed at what he just experienced. So what got translated in English as the wife of the priest, because how do you translate an experience of Shakti? You end up saying something like the wife of, he experienced it. It took 3 months of sadhana, and he hid under the bedclothes. He said for a day he couldn't come out. He was so shocked at this experience. And he then went to his teacher, who was the Shankaracharya, who was there in London, and he told him what had happened. And his teacher said, and Peter's like, well, he was expecting to get, this is quite an amazing experience. He was expecting to kind of get some acknowledgement there. Wow, great for you. But he just said, and what else? And Peter was like, well, that's it. He said, I've got all evening. I'll wait here until you tell me what else there is that you have to tell me. And the room, he just went, and Peter waited. And then he said, eventually something came forth, and he immediately tried to change it as it came out, but he said it nonetheless. He said, yeah, why are you doing all this? He said, why are you doing it? The teacher said to him, why are you doing all this? And he said, to acknowledge the past so I can lead the way for others. And he said, exactly. So now you better go on, leave the room and go and get on with it. And that was the beginning of his teaching experience, because he had experienced sound, he had experienced mantra. He realized what mantra was now, because he'd actually experienced it rather than read a translation in a book. And why he'd been doing this is because he had a deep, deep core within him to find the way so that he could show it to others. It doesn't have to be so that you can show it for others, but that was what was his expression. And from that moment on, he always led, group classes. He never charged me for anything, but at the time, maybe charged a little bit. So this is just to give you a feeling that what does the Gayatri mean? You can read a beautiful translation on a piece of paper, and we can go in word by word. I can tell you what each word means. But if you really actually want to experience Savitri, the experience of it is going to be so surprising that such capacity could be held within just a word. And if we want to experience that, more often than not, we need to set some kind of intention around it and be aware that this is what we're intending to engage with. This is the mode in which we're engaging with this mantra. So I think we are ready now. I think I've did another little sidetrack there, but again, all just prep work to bring us into the right feeling for what we're about to do. Again, another opportunity. Anyone has anything to ask? No.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, Lucy. Yeah, okay. I'm from India.
Yes.
Yeah. Just the Gayatri mantra last session, we played the Gayatri mantra Charan. In the last sessions, Gayatri Mantra, Om Bhut Bhargavasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayata.
Yeah.
The end the session of the ending. So we pray.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, great. I didn't quite catch that. Are you asking? Were you explaining that you did something in the last session?
Yeah, last session we pray the Gayatri Mantra.
Oh, great, great.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So this is going to be, yeah. This is. I'll show you the way that I've been shown and how I practice it now. So we'll see how it is for you. So I'm not going to add the Bhur Bhuvaswa at the beginning because that doesn't appear in the original form of the Gayatri Mantra in the Rigveda. That's been added later. So there will be no Bhur Bhuvaswa in our chanting of it. Okay, so we're going to take a moment to close our eyes. And just for people who are wondering when this is going to finish, I imagine we'll probably finish the session at 3:30, maybe the chanting, I don't know, 15-20 minutes, and then any feedback, and then 5 minutes, and then we'll finish. So we'll just bring our attention to the touch of the breath in the area below the nostrils, above the upper lip. Just feeling the movement of the breath as it moves from in to out and from out to in. Just feeling the different qualities of the breath as it makes these movements. Perhaps feeling slightly more cool and dry on the internal, on the movement from out to in. Perhaps feeling more warm and moist on the movement from in to out. And just bringing our fingertips to either side of the jaw and just rub our jaws from side to side, just releasing the lower jaw from the upper jaw and just making an audible exhale. And we'll just do one more like that. And then bringing our hands back down into our lap. Just relaxing the lower jaw. We'll do another audible exhale, but this time we're going to play with bringing the element of sound into our exhale. So we'll alternate between breath and sound, just finding that place where the sound starts to resonate. So we'll all be at our own pitches, and we'll inhale. And then just bringing our fingertips to the area of the heart, we'll try that one more time. So an ah in between breath and ah, just with our awareness in the area of the heart. Ah, ah, ah. And now making it a more continuous R sound. It's one long R together. And then bringing our hands down to rest in our lap. We'll do one more R together. And then we'll listen, repeat, and repeat as we sound the 16 Matrika, the 16 vowels or divine mothers of the Sanskrit language. So listen and repeat. Ah, ah, e, e, u, u, r, a, I, o, ow, ah, 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 e, e, u, r, a, I, o, ow, ah, Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. So bring our fingertips to the top of our head, resting them on the crown of the head. We'll acknowledge the Rishi of this mantra. So listen and repeat. Maharishi Vishwamitra Vishwamitra Maharishi Fingertips to the throat, resting in the area of the throat. Listen and repeat. Gayatri Chanda Chanda Gayatri Fingertips to the area of the heart. Listen and repeat. Devata Savita. Savita. Devata. Bring the hands to rest in the lap. We'll listen and repeat. Om. Tat. So tongue between the teeth. It's not an English T. Tongue between the teeth. Tat. Savitur. Sorry. Savitur. Again, tongue between the teeth for the T. So Savitur. Varenyam. The N tongue is pointed to the roof of the mouth. Nyam. Na. Tongue pointed to the roof of the mouth. Na. Varenyam. Bhargo. Aspirated with a ba. Bhargo. Devasya. Again, tongue between the teeth for the da, not an English da. Devasya. Dhimahi. Aspirate, it's not Dhimahi, it's Dhimahi. Tongue between the teeth. Dhiyo. Yo. Na. Tongue between the teeth for the na. Na. And I'm doing an expulsion of air at the end. It's not na, it's na. Lips ready for prachodayat. So every single D and T in this chant, tongue is between the teeth. Da, da. Apart from, every single D and T, the tongue is between the teeth. Om. Tongue between the teeth, listen and repeat. Tat savitur. Varenyam. Bhargo devasya. Dhimahi. Dhiyo yona. Prachodayat. The pra, your lips are forward in the shape of as though you're holding a pencil. Pra, prachodayat. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. We're going to chant together. So if you don't know it yet, just chant the first 3 lines, first 3 words, and listen to the rest. And if you do know it, chant along with me. And the feeling we want to invoke within us is a relaxing of effort. So let go of the effort. If you don't get the T's and D's in the right place at this point, it's fine. We're just going to let the mantra sound us. So together we'll sound an Om. Om. And then we'll chant together and just join in with that which you can. Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. We'll repeat a few times. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. Om. Just letting go of just a little more effort. Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. Last time, just reducing the volume even slightly. It's a very low volume, little effort. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. We'll just sit for a few moments, just feeling the resonance of those sounds. And just bringing our attention back to the touch of the breath in the area below the nostrils, above the upper lip. Just noticing the movement from this to that, from that to this. Purnamida, Purnamidam. That is full. This is full. Just noticing that the breath moves from fullness to fullness and is itself an expression of fullness. And then bringing our fingertips to our lower belly. Just feeling how this naturally brings a strength of breath down into this area. And then as we take a deeper breath, just slowly opening our eyes, bringing our vision back to the room we find ourselves in. Making any movements that may facilitate the arrival back. Look, I've got Savitar in my Vishuddha chakra. That's pretty good angle. Oh my goodness. Let me move a bit. So, I would love to hear if anyone had any observations or comments about how that experience was for them, how it might have been, especially for those who maybe know the Gayatri in another context and haven't necessarily done it in that context before. I'd love to hear your observations. There we go. It's lovely to share for the group. The group always benefits. Because whatever came through, Acre Chittam, chapter 4 talks about there being one tone thing. I like it more than tune. Yes, Caroline.
I noticed an incredible heat through my body, just starting those first couple of lines of the Gayatri mantra. It just started to sort of flow through me, the heat,
Right.
which was wonderful.
Interesting, yeah.
No other reason why that might have happened in this space that I'm in at the moment, apart from getting things moving from within.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you, Caroline. Lovely. Yeah, all sorts of things. Anyone else? Did anyone find it challenging, or did people feel they could feel a stillness within it? Oh, I'm spotlighted. No one. You don't have to say anything, but that's okay. No comments.
I love the Acre Shruti, the single tone. I think that's a very beautiful way to chant it, and
Yes.
seems in a sense slightly less distracting in a way.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that singing it with the 3 levels is not also very beautiful, but just the single tone is just very, it gives that stillness more, I think, for me. The stillness and the steadiness.
Yeah. and more chance perhaps for the gold within to really flourish.
Yeah.
Yes, I saw. Thank you, Moya. You said a similar thing in the chat box. Toby, yeah, is that Toby? Yeah, I can't miss the first letter. I can't see because it's Bobby or Toby.
Bobby.
Bobby, right?
Yeah, there's I often find this when I'm saying anything or chanting in Sanskrit, and today it was obviously evident again. There's this within the stillness, there's this vibration that is very, very pronounced all around my lips. And I often find that in my eyes too when I finish, if I'm chanting for a long period of time. And I found that again today, and it just remains. It's this still vibration just around this area, and it's from moving the mouth and tongue in such a different way that we're used to in English.
Yeah.
And it just keeps resonating for a long time, and then the words just keep moving around as well, and sometimes just one word sticks. And so yeah, it was just lovely to do and get that experience again with you, so thank you.
Great, thank you for sharing. Yeah, that was a really nice way of putting it, this tingling feeling that can happen. And of course, so many letters in the Sanskrit alphabet are with the tongue pointed up, and so do resonate this whole, the nasal area, in a way that we don't get in English. Yes, you will get tingling everywhere. It can be.
That's a lovely explanation. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good. One of my teachers said that's why English people are always so snotty and have colds, because we've missed that arsia didn't come down because we're an Indo-European language, but we've missed the retroflex arsia in our language, doesn't exist. So we've missed the nasal resonant, and as in there are a lot of yoga pranayamas and things that deal with resonating the nasal passage to clear them, and in the Sanskrit language you're getting that every day as you speak. It's naturally happening.
I wanted to thank you for sharing about Peter Harrison. He was the only person that ever taught me any Sanskrit, but very briefly in my time. So, and I was very sad to hear that news, but also very grateful that I'd had a tiny bit of light thrown from him.
Oh, amazing! You met him. Wow! And were you?
I was studying Ayurveda, and so he came to teach us the Sanskrit so we could absorb the root of what we're trying to treat as practitioners.
And did you feel he was a master?
Oh, blown away. I ended up dragging my wife and other people along to his lectures just because they were so powerful, and and just his teaching of just writing it with his lovely calligraphy pens, and it was just beyond anything.
Yeah. Gosh, that's so one. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. It was very sad. He died. He passed very quickly. He taught us on Sunday on Zoom. He was teaching us on Zoom when lockdown happened, and he died on the Tuesday. And it was very quick, those last few days, and so I obviously didn't get to actually see him. He was diagnosed with cancer in a month before he died.
Wow.
He was 82, and so
the most sprightly.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, so I'm still processing that experience. So lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really nice. Wow. Well, I'm going to be teaching, if people who are wanting to embody the yama niyama asana aspect of the language, I'm going to be teaching the learn to read and write Sanskrit, which is the way I teach, as you've probably gathered from today. You can't isolate. It's not just reading Sanskrit as you read and write. So your meditation and samadhi will deepen, but the focus of that course, it starts Wednesday week, 23rd of September, 7 till 9 p.m. online, as everything is these days. And if you can't make the live sessions, you can do the catch up. And it's 6 before Christmas, 4 after Christmas. You send the homework, I send it back. So that's going to be really looking at this Devanagari, embodying the Asya, so we really know where they are and how to read and write the language. And then I have another course, which is more the Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi element of the Sanskrit language, which is called the Sounds of Sanskrit, the language of yoga. And that is full for this year, and it's almost full for next year. So there's a course starting in March 21, and there are some spaces left for that. And that's all on my website, which is originalwisdom.co.uk. So that's the current offerings, and I've got chapter 4 pre-recorded online course of the Yoga Sutras on its way as well, which I'm quite excited about. So that will just be just pre-recorded kind of thing, because chapter 4 is one we often miss out. We do chapter 1 and 2 and then everyone stops, so I think it's good to get that one out, but we'll see. So It's been really wonderful sharing with everyone. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions or anything that came up that you just want to ask me, my email's on the website, lucy@originalwisdom.co.uk. I'll answer any questions. And I think that might be it.
I think
Rum's come back on.
you've stunned them, as always.
People do tend to leave the intro sessions a bit like, oh my goodness.
And what a lovely way to finish is in that meditative state with the chanting that's still deep within you. So thank you for that. Well, as you can see, everyone, this is why we have Lucy at the festival. She's absolutely fabulous and clearly a huge knowledge base in this area. So if you want to see her live, you need to come to the festival next year.
Next year, yeah.
And she'll be there in her tent, sitting on the sofa, doing exactly this thing. And then you can ask her questions in real time afterwards. This session will be recorded. And when we make the recording available, we'll make sure that all of Lucy's details, her website and things like that are on there. Do follow it up. Huge amount of knowledge. Thank you very much, Lucy. As always, thank you for your support of the festival. It's always much appreciated.
Oh, thank you so much, Ram. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
It'd be lovely if we could just end with 3 words, which is the way my teacher Peter ended every session. So if we could just say 4 words. So we'll call and response and we'll just say them. So we'll just close our eyes and we'll listen and repeat. Om. Paramatmane Namah Itti. And with this Itti is a closing of this energy and an opening of the next. So I wish you a wonderful Sunday afternoon and evening. Thank you so much to Ram and Sonali. Bye.